Well, we have all the gun camera footage of people being killed in Iraq and places, and then the video games simulate killing. So I think in a way they've turned war into a game show. I've talked to business owners.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Alex. I feel for kids today because kids that play these games and all these things that you see advertised on TV, with the killing and all that stuff, it's going to callous them towards it. They're going to think it's everyday activity in the normal way of life, and I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. One thing that's always amazed me, Alex, is how sex is rated X, but violence is only R.
Oh, yeah, you can have two boxers beat the daylights out of each other, and that's family fun, but you see a woman's breast, it's the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how really strange we are as a society that sex could be X-rated. That's worse than running around with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and movies like that show mass murderers and, people being killed, left slasher movies, all that stuff. Those only get an R rating, but sex gets an X rating.
Very, very well said. I totally agree with you on that point. Well, I mean, they admit we're being desensitized to all this. Speaking of censorship, I know that we're not supposed to get into the whole story because some of that's private, but people always ask me about this. Here we are over a year later, and they censored that Homeland Security FEMA special where you blew the camps wide open. Now they're doing urban warfare drills. The Army admits they've got the camps. I know you've been out of pocket, but I can send you that if you'd like.
Sure.
We were sent an Army document a few months ago. The Army came out and said, you shouldn't have that. But yes, we have re-education camps. So much of this is coming out in the open now. And so recap for folks what happened with that episode and now what's happened with the new season.
Well, what happened with that particular episode was, I believe it was, are we turning into a police state? And, of course, we discovered the documents. Congressman Cohn of Tennessee was one of the co-sponsors of it. And we found the documents where Homeland Security ordered FEMA to build no less than 6 detention camps. And, of course, the cover story is it's for disasters like Katrina, so that they will have places. They're located in 6 different locations throughout the country, and that if there's a big disaster that hits, what they tell you is that it'll be good then because we'll have places to put for lack of better term, refugees from the disasters until they can find, living quarters, other places or whatever. But, how can they be refugee camps when they build them with fences with barbed wire on? I mean, if they're just simply holding you there as a temporary thing due to a disaster, well, then why would they need things of that order? Why you shouldn't be able to come and go as you please? And the thing to always look at for people, the novice way to look at it is always look at the barbed wire on the top of the fence. If the barbed wire faces outward, it's to keep people from the outside getting in. If barbed wire faces inward, it's to keep people from the inside getting out. So that's one easy way when you ever see a barbed wire or a chain link fence with barbed wire on the top, look at the way the barbed wire is facing. If it's facing in, it's to keep prisoners in there. If it's facing out, then it's to keep outsiders from getting in.
Also, if it's coiled on the top, it's a detention center in many cases as well.
Oh, yeah. If it's razor wire, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. That's another cup of tea with that stuff. That razor wire will stop anybody from any direction.
Well, I've talked to program directors who've confirmed here on air that when you go that when you went on Mancow or that when I go on his show, and now I've confirmed it's happened to my show some, that they scramble it when we give bill numbers and talk about things like Emergency Centers Establishment Act. What do you think's happening there?
Well, Mancow, I've done his show twice now on this book tour, and he's informed me he's outraged. He's going crazy over it. And I appreciate Mancow a little bit because, he was the one who at first didn't believe that waterboarding was torture, but like a good journalist, he had it done to himself. And now he's completely reversed himself. He realizes that it is torture because he had it done to himself, where they administered the waterboarding to him. him.
And you know it's bad because you've had it done to you.
Yeah, back in SEER school, we all essentially did many years ago. So, and they used to call it Chinese water torture, but they got a way of changing the names. Then it became waterboarding, and now thanks to Dick Cheney, it's called enhanced interrogation. But getting back to the show, that's what we learned. And of course, when we confronted Congressman Cohn with it, he actually read on the congressional floor an outrage statement against me, Michael Braverman, and my television show. So we actually went into the congressional record on it, but on that particular show. But the weird thing about it was it aired one time, and then it was taken off the air, and now True TV won't even acknowledge we did the show. It's out there on YouTube, I would guess. It's still there. You got to search and find it.
They also erased it off the DVRs, Governor.
Okay, well, that's news to me, too. So, obviously they don't want any of this out there for the public consumption or public comment or knowledge on it. And as far as the show goes this year, it's interesting because you were just talking about TSA and all that stuff.
Hold on, Governor. Stay there. Stay there. We've got to go to break. Governor Jesse Ventura is our guest. Get his book and support the First Amendment. They can't erase this off your TiVo. Democrips and Republicans. Infowarshop.com. And bookstores everywhere. We have it discounted with the Free Citizen Rule Book, Evil Constitution, at InfoWars. Sick of the glove. All right, Governor Jesse Ventura is our guest. Gov, you were getting into the TV show. For folks that just joined us, I was saying, where's the TV show? The third installment. I know it got into the TSA. It was supposed to already air 4 or 5 months ago. Where is it? You said, that's interesting, Alex, and then we went to break.
Okay, well, it is interesting because we finish the shows right on time like we normally do in November, and usually the editing takes place immediately, and we're on the air sometime in either mid-January or early February, but here we are approaching July, and the shows have not aired, and of course one of the shows we focused on this year was the TSA. And one of the things we learned is that they're going to come out with these wristbands that will, what they're going to sell to the public is they will have all your information, and so you'll be banded much like a dog collar, only it'll be around your wrist, and therefore you can stick the wristband in something, and they'll know exactly who you are, which seems on the surface like maybe a good thing. But underneath, what we also learned is they can decapacitate you with these, much like a taser, where if they want to drop you in the airport, if you're wearing one of these, they will have the ability to do that to you.
Wow.
Yeah, we learned that on the show, that these things also double for a security device, as I said, to where, like they'll say, if you're causing trouble or we suspect you of being, having bad purposes at the airport, that they can just literally drop you like a taser with them if you're wearing them. So that'll be more stuff the lemmings, I'm sure, will love to get, and they'll wear them faithfully.
Well, no, I saw Homeland Security a few years ago. They had a meeting and listened to a proposal to make everyone wear security bracelets, and they added, oh, by the way, as an afterthought, they have a taser function in them, and Homeland Security was actually pushing it. So you're saying you were doing an episode researching that?
Yeah, that's what's in the episode on the TSA, where we expose that whole thing, that if you do put these, they'll require them at the airports. And that way, allegedly, you won't have to go through the body searches. You won't have to go through the X-ray machine if it properly identifies you. But on the flip side, it can also be used to drop you down, and to get you under control if they had any need to do that.
Wow.
So I'm glad I'm not flying anymore. I made the choice when they wouldn't allow me to go to court over my Fourth Amendment constitutional rights, saying they didn't have jurisdiction. I just followed what Janet Napolitano said, the head of the Gestapo. That's what I like to call Homeland Security. She said, if you don't like it, don't fly. So I don't like it, so I'm not flying.
Governor, I mean, if it's already this bad today, how much worse is it going to get?
I don't know, Alex. And I said this on another interview. I said, this right now is the first time in my life where I can say this. All the rest of my life, no matter how bad today is in the United States, I always had the feeling that tomorrow would be a better day. This is the first time in my life that if it's bad today, I actually looked at tomorrow could now be worse. You know, I mean, we're getting an assault on the middle class that's unbelievable, you know, and people, an assault on unions. Now, granted, unions can be overreach their bounds. They can be, you know, bad because they're run by people. But for the most part, unions are what created the middle class. And if you look at a chart that shows median wage, and if you look at the same chart that shows union falling, the lines are identical. As unions fall, so does median income, and they fall identically. People need to understand it was unions that gave us things like collective bargaining. It gave you things to be able to get health insurance at work. It gave you things against the employers that you wouldn't have as an individual. Case in point, I did the Fran Tarkenton show, and he was wailing pretty hard on the unions. Then I brought up, Fran, remember something. You in the NFL had a union, or still have one. I said, in pro wrestling, we have never had one. That's why at one point in my career, I wrestled 63 consecutive nights in a row without a day off. 63 days in a row. Yeah, I never had health insurance. This was back in the early 80s. I was paying $5,000 a year to insure my family, my wife, and my kids. Where if we would have had a union, I would have probably only had to pay $1,500 a year because there's strength in numbers. And also, you know, in pro wrestling, where in pro football, pro baseball, all the sports that have unions, they have retirement.
Stay there, Jesse.
In the world of pro wrestling, there is no retirement whatsoever.
The Empire's on the run.
Okay, Jesse Ventura is with us another 30 minutes. Always love having him on. We're going to open the phones up here in about 10, 15 minutes for a quick comment or question for Governor Ventura. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. You got cut off by that break there, Governor, finishing your point about unions. Yeah, you'll see a lot of football players, others who are making $5 million a year. They'll be real, quote, conservative criticizing unions, but they sure like their union. I don't like mainline unions because they're anti-gun, pro-New World Order. You know, they've been taken over as well, but certainly there's no checks and balances to the big mega corporate unions, these cartels that come in and buy off our governments.
Not at all. And going back to wrestling for a moment, the other thing is in pro wrestling, because there's not a union, there's no retirement. So you can wrestle 25 years, and let's face it, wrestlers are not accountants. They're not, you know, specialists to know how to invest and take care of their futures all the time. They're professional wrestlers. And you can put 25 years in the business, and when you're done, you get nothing. Not a thing. Because there's no union protection at all in pro wrestling.
Well, there's not. You know, I've got a lot of questions here that I want to raise, Governor, but what is front and center on your plate right now? What's your greatest concern? What's stuck in your craw?
Well, what I'm most concerned about is our loss of freedom. You know, the Bill of Rights to me has been, and our Constitution is in shambles. The very cloth of our nation that we're supposed to abide by. I mean, in Chapter 2 of my book, you know, I have quotes, remarkable quotes from George Washington, especially the father of our country, talking about how